When I first moved into our cozy two-story home in suburban Ohio, I had dreams of building the perfect life with my husband, Mark. We had been married for a little over 2 years when we bought the house, both thrilled to finally have a place to call our own. The neighborhood was quiet, lined with trimmed hedges and towering maples, and the people seemed friendly enough. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved while mowing their lawns, where kids rode bikes until dusk, and where I hoped we could grow stronger together. But things didn't go the way I envisioned. Mark was a good man, don't get me wrong. He had a steady job as a financial analyst, was faithful, responsible, and polite. But emotionally, he was distant. He often buried himself in work, staying late at the office, glued to his laptop, or distracted by sports on TV. Our conversations became brief, logistical exchanges: what to pick up from the store, what time the plumber was coming, who forgot to take out the trash. Affection faded. We stopped having date nights. He stopped noticing when I wore new clothes or changed my hairstyle. And though I tried, I could never seem to break through the wall he'd built between us. 5 years passed in that haze of distance. I threw myself into maintaining the home, decorating it room by room, planting flowers in the yard, and even taking online classes to keep myself busy. But I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. I would sit in the backyard, sipping coffee in the morning or wine in the evening, watching the wind rustle the trees, hoping for something to change. That's when I noticed him. His name was Jake, and he lived 2 houses down. I'd seen him a few times over the years, tall, broad-shouldered, always working on something outside. He had that rugged, practical air about him, someone who knew how to fix things, someone who paid attention to the world around him. He was a widower, I later learned, in his early 40s, with no kids and a warm, easy smile. Our interactions started small: a wave here, a good morning there. But slowly, they evolved. One day, while I was struggling to carry a large box of gardening supplies from the car, Jake appeared from his driveway and offered to help. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He hoisted the box as if it weighed nothing and followed me into the backyard, setting it down gently by the shed. "You sure you don't need help setting any of this up?" he asked, looking at the unopened tools and bags of soil. "Well, I was going to give it a try. But if you know anything about raised beds, I could use some advice," I said. Jake grinned. "You're talking to someone who built his own garden from scratch. I've got you." And just like that, it began. Over the next few weekends, Jake came by regularly to help. He brought tools, shared tips, and even planted a few things himself. He had a patience and attentiveness that took me by surprise. We talked about everything: music, books, life, the way the seasons changed in the Midwest. He listened, really listened, with eyes that didn't wander and a focus that made me feel seen for the first time in a long while. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch after a long day of planting, I laughed at a joke he made, and he looked at me with such warmth that it caught me off guard. "You have a beautiful laugh," he said. I froze. No one had said that to me in years. Maybe not even Mark, not since we first met. "Thank you," I said softly, my cheeks flushing. "It feels good to laugh again." There was a silence between us, not uncomfortable, but charged with something I hadn't felt in ages. I pulled my eyes away and stood up, brushing soil off my hands. "I should head in," I said. "Sure. Let me know if you need anything," Jake replied, standing too, his voice gentle. That night, I lay awake in bed while Mark snored softly beside me. I thought about how Jake looked at me, how he made me feel, and how guilty I felt for even thinking about him when I had a husband sleeping inches away. But guilt couldn't erase the truth. I was aching to feel connected to someone, and Jake had opened a door that had long been shut. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself looking forward to Jake's visits more and more. He helped me fix a broken fence, repaint the deck, and even install new lights in the backyard. Mark never noticed. He was always either at work or distracted. I tried to talk to him about how I felt distant, how we needed to spend more time together, but he always promised to try and never followed through. One particularly hot July day, the central air in our house broke. Mark grumbled about it but didn't have time to look into it. "Call someone," he muttered, walking out the door. I did, but the earliest appointment was in 5 days. The heat was unbearable. Jake saw me in the yard that evening, fanning myself with a magazine. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Our AC's out. Mark hasn't had a chance to deal with it. I tried calling, but the soonest someone can come is next week." Jake furrowed his brow. "I might be able to take a look. I fixed my own a couple summers back." I hesitated. "Are you sure? I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble. Let me grab my tools." He came over, climbed into the attic, and worked diligently for over an hour. When he came back down, sweaty and covered in dust, he said, "Try it now." I turned on the thermostat and cool air began to flow. I almost cried. "You did it," I said, smiling. "Told you I had some skills," he joked, wiping his forehead. "I can't thank you enough," I said. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. "You don't have to." I stood there, unsure what to say. But what I felt was unmistakable. In that moment, Jake had done what my husband couldn't do in 5 years, not just fixing the air conditioner, but noticing my needs, stepping up without being asked, caring enough to make my life easier. He gave me something I hadn't even realized I'd been missing: validation, presence, respect. From then on, Jake and I became even closer. We never crossed a line, but the emotional bond between us grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, I invited him to dinner to thank him again. We talked for hours. When he left, he stood at the door, hesitant. "You deserve to be happy, Claire," he said softly. The way he said it stayed with me. That night, I cried. Not because I had feelings for Jake, but because I realized how deeply I'd let myself become neglected. I had given Mark so many chances, so much time, hoping he'd change. But he never did. And now someone else, kind, steady, emotionally present, was showing me what I'd been missing all along. Months later, after several long, honest conversations, Mark and I decided to separate. It wasn't about Jake, and I never told him about what I felt for my neighbor. It was about finally being honest with myself. About reclaiming my happiness and my right to feel loved and valued. After the dust settled, Jake and I slowly let our friendship blossom into something more. We took our time. There were no grand declarations, no rush. Just shared coffee on the porch, long talks under the stars, and the comfort of knowing someone truly saw me. And that, more than anything, was what I loved most. Jake didn't just fix an air conditioner. He reminded me I was still worthy of love, attention, and connection. Something my husband, for all his good traits, could never seem to offer.